After a few weeks of waiting, we are back with Formula One, with the United States GP held at the Austin circuit in Texas, and which, from the first free practice sessions, made it clear that balance would be the word of the weekend, with Max Verstappen starting side by side with Lando Norris, which on this circuit always promises excitement on the first lap due to the various overtaking zones. But before I tell you all the details of everything that happened on the track in this race, I invite you to subscribe and activate notifications, as this is the only way you won't miss anything about the world of Formula One. And if you like this video, leave a comment "I liked it" to support our work here at Home Race. While going to the track before the cars even left the grid, we had the information that George Russell received a punishment, since after the accident he suffered in qualifying this Saturday, the Mercedes mechanics had to work late on his car. And taking advantage, the team chose to change the car's settings to those of the Singapore GP, as the driver was not happy with his performance after Saturday. Thus, according to the regulations, Russell had to start from the pits, giving up a position to several drivers and having, like Lewis Hamilton, to make a recovery run from the back of the grid. And speaking of strategies, Pirelli recommended 2 stops in the pits to change tires. But many made statements pointing out that they believed that Ferrari would try something more risky and would try just 1 pit stop, aiming to gain the position of Norris and Verstappen with this move. And right at the start, there were many surprises, with Lando Norris starting well, but Verstappen trying to overtake right in turn 1, with both going to the limit trying to maintain that position. And in that fight, the one who took advantage was Charles Leclerc, who passed the 2 drivers and took the lead of the race. Still on lap 1, Carlos Sainz also went after Verstappen, with the Red Bull driver leaving the track in this dispute, maintaining 2nd place, with Norris only falling to 4th in this first lap and Leclerc opening 1.5 seconds to Verstappen, taking advantage of Carlos Sainz's help in this situation. Looking at who started well, Lewis Hamilton gained 5 positions at that start, as did Lawson, who also gained 5 positions, a good start to the race for these drivers. And still on lap 2, Sainz continued to put pressure on Verstappen, with Ferrari having a good pace in these opening minutes of the GP. And on lap 3, Lewis Hamilton, who despite starting well, ended up losing control of his car in a sequence of curves and ended up in the gravel, and as a result, caused a yellow flag, which shortly afterwards became a safety car, with Hamilton abandoning the race. Race in the opening minutes, leaving the car quite sad. On lap 5, the safety car left the track and Charles Leclerc was responsible for leading the field, losing his advantage to Verstappen and having to defend himself on this restart lap, with him doing well and already opening up a safe advantage over Verstappen again in this one. Restart, on lap 7, Leclerc had already opened more than 1 second of advantage over Verstappen and thus defended himself from the opening of the moving wing, with Sainz again approaching and trying to gain that position from the current championship leader. Around lap 10, Carlos Sainz lost some performance and began to complain that his car was losing power and was running low on fuel, something that could be serious and even take him out of the race. With this problem, Verstappen managed to get a little more distance, but still had no chance of getting closer to Leclerc, who was at a very good pace, and by lap 11 had already opened up a lead of more than 4 seconds. Another driver who was having an excellent race was Liam Lawson, who, even starting on hard tires, was overtaking a lot of people and was already getting close to the point zone. On lap 14, Max Verstappen was told on the radio that they had some problem with the car, and they tried to solve it during the pit stop, another worrying moment for the driver in this race. On lap 17, the stewards announced a penalty for George Russell for this maneuver, stating that he forced his rival off the track, having to pay 5 seconds and complaining a lot on the radio. Also, in this part of the race, several drivers began to make their pit stops, with the leaders staying on the track, and on lap 19, Leclerc already had an 8-second advantage over Verstappen. Finally, on lap 22, 3rd place Carlos Sainz made his first pit stop, perhaps in an attempt to force Verstappen to also stop to defend 2nd place. And calmly up front, Leclerc was asked how long he would be able to stay on the track with these tires, with him stating that he was doing very well and that they would be able to stick to Plan C, which was probably the plan of only 1 pit stop. Shortly behind, Lando Norris was trying to make up for the disadvantage to Verstappen, since this position would be worth a lot in the fight for the Drivers' Championship. And on lap 26, Max Verstappen made his pit stop and ended up coming back behind Carlos Sainz, having to recover his second place on the track, and knowing that the two Ferraris were doing very well. On the following lap, Leclerc pitted and fitted hard tires, indicating that he would go all the way to the end of the race, with him returning to the track with ample room over his teammate Carlos Sainz, with at least a 6-second advantage. Meanwhile, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri remained on the track, trying to extend their pit stop a little longer and surprise at the end, perhaps fitting soft tires. It was only on lap 31 that Norris pitted, fitting hard tires to his car and returning well behind Verstappen, but with a chance of getting closer in this final stretch of the race with fresher tires. After the first pit stops, Leclerc was the leader, Sainz was second, 7 seconds behind, Verstappen was third, and Norris was fourth. Rookie Liam Lawson was doing very well in the point zone in 7th, as was Colapinto, who was in 8th position, even ahead of Sergio Perez. Around lap 40, Verstappen started to complain a lot on the radio, saying that his tires were in bad shape and that he couldn't brake, losing a lot of pace compared to Lando Norris, who was approaching. On lap 44, Norris was already less than 1 second behind Verstappen, and we would see this fight for position on the track. In the following laps, Norris still couldn't overtake, with the two drivers very close. On lap 47, Norris went after it in an attempt to gain that position more aggressively, but Verstappen still managed to stay in front, with the last laps promising a lot of excitement between them. Reaching lap 51, Norris went for it again, but Verstappen defended his position very well, leaving no space for Norris, with the McLaren driver even going off the track on lap 52 in this dispute, but finally managing to overtake on lap 53, with Verstappen not taking it easy and trying to recover this position on the following lap. And it was Norris' turn to close the door and not allow the overtaking. Verstappen complained a lot on the radio, saying that Norris gained an advantage off the track. And even though Norris managed to open a good advantage over Verstappen, he ended up receiving a last-minute penalty, having 5 seconds deducted from his time, and losing the position to Verstappen. Tell me in the comments, do you think this penalty was fair? Well, with this electrifying ending, Ferrari made it a 1-2, with Charles Leclerc taking another unexpected victory this weekend, with Carlos Sainz in second and Max Verstappen in third place. Rounding out the top 10 were Norris in fourth, Piastri in 5th, Russell in 6th, Perez in 7th, Hülkenberg in 8th, rookie Liam Lawson in 9th place, and Franco Colapinto in 10th place. Thus, we ended the United States GP with a victory for Charles Leclerc and plenty of on-track battles, with Verstappen managing to maintain his advantage over Norris in yet another weekend that could be worth a lot in the title race. But I want to hear from you. What did you think of this race? Did you like the on-track battles and Ferrari's 1-2?